welcome back. And it's the third interview in 2 days. I'm going to upload this as soon as possible as well. And today I've got a fantastic broadcaster. I've been watching his channel for a while. I've been watching both of them, Justice and Justice, two militants, fresh out of jail on the Justice account. I want you all to go over there and watch the videos, all of them. Use your own discernment, as I'd say, do with every single video. I want him to introduce himself now to you all and tell us more about why you got into broadcasting in the first place and what inspired you to set up your channel and develop how you have.
Well, I'm Justice. I make a wide range of videos, really, a lot of them dealing with sort of esoteric occult, that side of exposing people who bring forth various narratives surrounding the times that we're in right now. Obviously, as we all know, there's some crazy times. I don't really know what possessed me to make a channel, to be honest. Actually, now to be fair, I was making a few videos and then I did an audit and I got like 1,000 or so subscribers off of that. So from there, I had like a basis of people that wanted to, interact and hear stuff from me. And I didn't go out and do another audit because I got nicked and I had an upcoming court case and that. So I had to just put out other stuff and people still liked it and that. So I just carried on doing it, really. I mean, yeah, on that front, I guess I was kind of just fell into it, really. I didn't really have any major desire to make a channel. I just went out with a camera one day and that was it, really.
I've enjoyed some of the information you put out surrounding Code Red 19 as well. It's been informative. I think.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, there's been so much going on. It's kind of hard to focus on just one thing. I kind of find myself being a bit slack on videos because I feel like I want to go onto one thing and then there's so much going on, whether it's the breakdown of various different forms of data or legislation or just breaking down newsreel clips and what's been said. There's so many different avenues of things that we should be looking towards. I find it difficult to place myself all at one place at one time. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I find myself, going in various different bits and trying to highlight different ways. And I feel like that way as well, it gives people like a well-rounded view of how they can kind of approach looking at things from a different angle, And I feel like I've touched on probably most aspects of everything we could be surrounded with at this time, really.
I've been looking with several different angles at the moment, man. I think there's a lot of speculation going around at the moment. And the truth community seems quite divided, whereas it'd be nice if it was all united, but it can't be now, because obviously it's been infiltrated time and time again. I don't know if you remember the Max Spears stories, but he was talking about tunnels underground and stuff, and this just seems to have resurfaced, but along with 17, can I say that?
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't.
Oh, man.
I did a video the other day. I don't know if you even managed to catch it, to be honest, but it was kind of exposing the letter before R. And yeah, they said it was a harassment or bullying or something weird. And I requested them to review it, saying, "Look, this is against you. I'm not."
Yeah, it sounds good.
I'm not for it, And they was like, "Yeah, nah, you still mentioned it. Like, we're not having it." So I don't know.
I was one of them. I really stayed on the fence with it because I thought, for the sake of the potential victims that we're talking about, if it turns out to be true, then of course I want them to be saved. You know what I mean? I'm not that person. I've always been a positive person, and I know it goes on in real life. So people do make up stories surrounding that kind of business.
That's what it is.
The dark side of the occult.
Really, like you said, like you wanted to believe in it, and at least to a certain extent, because of the possible implications of who was involved. It's pure emotional manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of people, when you interact with them and tell them our side of thinking now, you get a lot of backlash from the cult members there because they're so mentally indoctrinated with the possibility or what they believe to be totally factual uh, the horrors of what it is. How could you possibly want to be against that? It's, you're almost siding with like you're the cabal.
Which comes from, like you said in your previous video, it comes from Kabbalah manifestation magic. That's where Kabbalah originates from, right? Um, but
Yeah,
they say they're awake, bro. But to me, they're only awake to the Matrix because they're still waiting for a politician as a savior. And while you sat back trusting plans on the couch, like 5G towers are getting put up everywhere. I don't even know if I can say that. Loads of madness has been going on over the last year or two. You
I
know.
mean, it's one of those. I think there's a lot of them that are reasonably well in tune to various different aspects of different avenues that surround quote unquote truth or whatever. So I think there's a lot of them that would be aware of the Kabbalah and Kabbalistic practices, not necessarily the fundamental foundational aspects of them, but they would just know that when you say the Kabbalah comes from the Kabbalah, they'd be like, no, 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 they're separate factions, Whereas I would lean more towards the Kabbalah with a C, just isn't anything.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing. There is no faction or entity that is that. I mean, I know that it's meant to be an overarching term, but it doesn't lend any purpose other than to confuse. You can then choose who is in and who is out, i.e., Mr. T, who was POTUS, is not in it, and that's because you've made up a faction. If you create a separate faction, you can choose who's in it and who isn't in it, and that's what they've done with it, I feel, and just confused what different factions do. Obviously there is the difference between simple low-level Blue Lodge masonry and high-level esoteric occult practice masonry, either in the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. They're both totally different things. I know plenty of people who have been Freemasons, who are Freemasons. I work a manual labor job, so I go into a lot of people's houses and meet a lot of different people on a daily basis. I know people that have been in the lodge for 20, 30 years, and if you was to mention half of this stuff to them, they wouldn't have a clue what you was on about.
That's what this is all about, isn't it, bro? Red Lodge, Blue Lodge, it's the Pillars of Solomon.
Yeah, 100%. It's all compartmentalized and that, but yeah, it's just about really the overstanding of how these different factions are intertwined and the different doctrines and practices that they adhere to. So making one overarching term as the cabal doesn't help anyone understand anything. All it is a confusion, and the only people that want to confuse you is the deep state cabal. So
yeah,
we
talk about targeting the deep state, but you only ever hear about them targeting the left wing deep state. The deep state are in the right wing as well. It's two wings of the same fallen angel. That's the way I see it. It's a two-headed beast, regardless of who you're backing. And it's just like you said it perfectly in the chat the other day. It's Golden Dawn versus the Phoenix Order, and one side seems to be throwing the other side under the bus. And this is from my perspective. That's what I'm seeing, anyway. Or maybe they are.
It's meant to look for the spectators. I mean, that is what the movie is for them. That's what they've got the popcorn out for. Is the show. And I don't dispute the general ethos surrounding the idea that we'll see in the show, but it doesn't. There is no good and bad in the show. It is just that they're all actors. It's like, I mean, they want to choose who is actually an actor and who isn't an actor, who's a real person that's been put in the film. Like, no, they are all actors or they're not all actors. You're not one foot in, one foot out, bro. That's not how this thing works. But
for my audience, man, it is all wrestling. It is all WWF, everything. 100%. I predicted the Super Bowl outcome using gematria, and I was right. I should have put money down, but I didn't.
But no, like in the same token, it's like I say, like Blue Lodge Masonry and the higher echelons of that faction are totally, totally different things, and the people within them prescribe to totally, totally different thought patterns. They have nothing really within the same realm when it comes to this stuff to do with truth, and the same with all these other factions. You've got the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar. There's so many of these different factions, like you said, the Golden Dawn, the OTO, all the Crowleyism aspect of it, the theosophical side of things. There is all these different doctrines. I mean, they do all fall under one general practice, which would be Luciferianism in my eyes. But to group all of these different factions into one doesn't do anything but distort and blur the lines and make people really not understand, like you say, that, for instance, the left and the right wing are just two wings of exactly the same Babylonian bird. So it doesn't do anything but aid to confuse them, and I guess fit in with their narrative of this kind of left right continuous paradigm. You know, people, I feel like people are kind of comfy in that as well. They know where they're at with that, with politics. They want to keep politics going. They want to have someone to vote for and have something to trust in and have something to hope in, because they know where they're at with that. They're not, no one's lost with that. Everyone knows about how to go and stand with a picket and shout shit, and everyone knows how to go and put something on a ballot and hope for the best. You know what I mean? It's all, we've all done this before. People are comfy in them zones.
Yeah, man, and it's going to break their hearts if they find out what's going on any deeper than that. You know, it's supposed to be transcending all of that in my eyes. And like, there's been a few Trojan horses in that specific 17 movement, and it seems to have worked perfectly because it's divided all over the shop. You see it divide here, divide there, divide everywhere. None of them are coming to the same conclusion, really. When really the end goal is to make them all unified, I suppose. But I wanted to ask where you stand religiously, because I watched a specific interview that Dr. Charlie Ward did, the fake doctor, with some lady a few months ago. I can't remember the name of her for the life of me, but she brought up that Trump was apparently the royal line, to do with the royal line of Judah, and that specifically pissed you off. I could see in the video. So I was like, where do you stand with the Most High and one God?
Oh, mate, that video there, I can't remember who it was again. I don't know if it was, I don't really want to, yeah, I'm not going to speculate as to who it was actually, but it was, yeah, that was horrible, man, hearing that, because so many people were just like in the chat, like, yeah, you're so right. And nothing she was saying was from scripture. She was just randomly making shit up. But anyways, me, oh, mate, basically, yeah, for me, there's two choices in this realm. We either come from how they say we come from, which is a single cell organism probably deriving from the sea and then evolving over millions and millions and millions of years to become this perfect this perfect species, right, in this perfectly balanced realm, and then we just come along within like a few thousand years, we totally fuck it up, even though, yeah, crazy. Anyways, there's either that, or the only other alternative that I'm aware of is if that we was created, manifested by a separate entity, a separate conscious entity, and put here, placed here for a purpose. That's the only choices that I can fathom that have any sort of intellectual worth to them. And I mean, the first is debatable the further down you get, I feel. But, you know, that is the generally prescribed principle in the modern world, is that, you know, we all evolved here. So yeah, for me, there is only those two choices. That's the duality of the matter, and you either you have to pick. You know what I mean? There's no in between with it. It's one or the other. And so for me, we were created, fathomed, placed here for a purpose by a separate conscious entity, a one God. Now, for me, that God has explained the foundation of the creation, how it came about. That is also totally the polar opposite of what the generally prescribed narrative is today. You know, it's sun before water, water before sun. It's the complete opposite. But yeah, for me, the scriptures are off the Bible I'm talking about now, specifically the 1611 King James version, not necessarily any newer King James versions. It's quite hard to get hold of, but nevertheless, it doesn't really matter, because to me the word of God can only really be linguistically tampered with. It can't, the word itself cannot be changed. Words within the scriptures can, and if you were to take individual scriptures by themselves, can be deceiving and misleading, and you know, you can get caught up. But for me, the word of God comes through the Bible. It perfectly describes how he came about, how mankind has developed through the ages, um, how we came to be now, and the times ahead. Um,
I'd say it was the Bible that made me understand duality properly, because I was like, right, we've got God here, and he's good. He represents good, obviously, but he's capable of doing evil. Look at the Old Testament, or not evil, but bad things. Capable of doing bad things. And then on the other side of the coin, we've got the devil, who's capable of doing certain things to enhance your life, like give you Happy Meal toys for a pretty dear price. Like, you know, price that I'd never want to pay.
so glad you said that, you know, because this is what it really boils down to is a case of morality, innate morality, and I speak about that all the time. And it's that when you said they're an act of evil, now one could perceive it as that, obviously. And I mean, I know you didn't mean that when you said it like that, but it's compassion. You know, if
Yeah.
I always think about it in a sense of like, because people say that to me all the time. Like when I speak about God for the first time to them, they're like, "Right, you seriously about that shit? What the fuck?" And they're like, "Well, if that was real, then why would there be kids with flies in their face starving in Africa?" And I'm like, "What, you think that was a God-made issue? Like,
Yeah, of course.
if that was me or you or anyone, yeah, you'd created this perfect simulation." Yeah, and you'd given them everything perfectly in balance to go off with free will and do what they want. Are you going to intervene at every step and try and, or are you just going to watch shit play out? Because you already know how it's going to play out anyway, because you've given them the book of how it's going to play out if they so wish to go and read it. You're not going to intervene. That's like, why would you do that? You're the one to create. I mean, it's not for us to judge the creation anyway. But if we are to, then you have to do it from a logical standpoint. And I feel like that is totally illogical. So it's a point of morality. And even when it comes to the occultist side of things, it is so carefully intertwined. And this is where I feel the 17 movement, the letter before R, is so dangerous in its new age teachings, because a lot of these people, like I say, are relatively clued up, but they don't understand the foundational principles of what exactly new age versus esoteric teachings are. They don't believe that they're the same thing. They don't believe that what they believe in is the same as what the deep state are pushing. And essentially, like I say, it's so closely intertwined. It's either you wholeheartedly accept that we were put here for a purpose, for a reason, by a singular entity, or the other. And then it's a case of, well, do we adhere to those laws and the natural innate morality that we were given consciously, or do we try and manifest and create our own ones and prescribe to those? And in the higher echelons of those teachings, the only aim is to become gods of their realm, this realm that they are recreating. That's why the whole thing with the one after the letter 17, NA in the VACC, is so important, because they are recreating what it is that is a humanoid.
Yeah.
That new species is a species that they are totally gods of, because they did create it. It is their creation.
Yeah.
Satan has been in
We
control
see
of
it pushing
this
that
realm.
transhumanism so hard, you know.
Yeah, and it's almost done.
Mad.
It's almost done. That's the thing that's so scary, is that it's almost done. You know, like as soon as everyone takes this, it's done. Their job is done. I'm not saying that everyone is going to keel over, because that's obviously not their aim. So yeah, it's the recalibration of what it is that makes us us. The fundamental sequences that bind the physicality that is us. You know, that's as well something that's so important to me, is people's realization of the idea that physicality is all that makes this. I mean, it is amazing. It is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but it's only our perception of the way that these molecules and atoms interact in a certain vibration, and our ability to be in tune at this very, very small, fine fragment of information. And that's all it is, you know what I mean? There is, I mean, Genesis, a lot of Kabbalistic Hadishim type scholars will suggest that Genesis depicts there being 10 dimensions. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily prescribe to that notion exactly when it comes to extrapolating occult information from scriptures, but there is certainly scientific information within the Bible that would suggest that, yeah, the physicality within this realm is I mean, when it's so blatant, you know, we have 20/20 hearing. It goes from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. You know, you probably know playing guitar and that, you know what I mean? You can damage that and it only gets smaller. You cannot increase it. Same with the vision. Do you know what I mean? You get 20/20 vision as best. You get something blam you in the eye, mate, it's only decreasing. You're not going to get any better. Whereas something like a dog can apparently only see in black and white, but their hearing can go from like 40 kilohertz to 30 hertz or something around that. So their ability to perceive frequencies on a different spectrum or on a higher spectrum is far greater than ours. And we know this for a fact. So our limitation is there by design. This is why I don't F with people within that same movement as well that promote card reading and that sort of clairvoyancy type stuff. This perception that we have limited. I'm not saying that you can never elevate above it or outside of it and that it's always negative, but involving and engaging in certain practices such as that most certainly invites entities, whether you have positive intentions or not, because that's what a lot of people think, that they think that, you know, they might believe in, I mean, the 17 movement speaks about God a lot. And I feel like that is, for the most part, to appeal to the right-wing conservative or American audience that are quite that way minded.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, it is, to me, quite obvious that it is occultic in its presentation. It never, ever, ever speaks of which God. You know, that's very, very important.
Well, speaking of that, mate, speaking of that, you just reminded me of something really interesting. While I was researching the 17 movement, I found out that MAGA, or mage, or magic, is the highest ranking in Satanism anyway, and I got that off the Church of Satan's website. So, you know, like they've had the wool pulled over their eyes there. In a way, I've also thought, is it to tag and trace, you know, conservative thinking Christian people, maybe lead them to persecution?
About the WW1GWA. I'm not going to say the thing because I'll probably shut it off as well, but you know the tagline that I'm on about. Yeah. And that comes from where the Watchers descended onto Mount Hermon in Enoch 6. People are, you know, again, when I speak about scripture and the Bible, I'm not just speaking about the King James Version. I'm going to the apocryphal text. We're talking the book of Enoch, the Kibra and Agast. All of these texts have great, great significance in the tale of how humanity really developed in certain different parts of the world and how things developed in certain different times. I mean, you know, the 17 movement's perception of Israel, for instance, is insane to me. I have no idea how they explain that. I mean, I don't really deal with these people too hard because I feel like if I get into it too much, I just end up abusing them or something because it's just stupid and they're just, I can't really take it too much. But I have no idea how they explain that away. What is their perception of, I mean, even when they say it will be biblical, again, like I was saying before, they have no direct indication of exactly which God they're speaking about, because it's important for me as well to make people know for a fact that the higher ranking Freemasons, the occultic practitioners, the ones in the Hermetic order, the theosophical followers, you know, whether it be the real teachers from way back like Madame Blavatsky and Alice Bailey, or whether it be the newer New Age practitioners like David Icke and them, they have a God.
Mhm.
They might not come out and be like, tell you what it is. They might allude and try and make it sound like the God is the God of the Bible, but they are never ever specific. And it's important for people to know that that side that they call the deep state have a God, and that God is Lucifer, and they will do everything they can to go God, 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 and not be specific about it. So that you think it's that, you know what I mean? The same ways they'll tell you it's biblical, it will be biblical, but never want you to go and read the Bible. Because if you do, you will most probably understand after a little while and a little bit of real independent research that America is very, very vividly depicted within scripture. And it's not a good place to be. You know what I mean? How do you think the Savior is going to turn up in America if you've read the Bible? I don't know.
Well,
But it's not
I
there.
did some digging around Mr. T, mate, and I actually found out the surname comes from Drumpf,
Yeah, man.
Drum.
A
It's like
Germanic.
it's a high Germanic bloodline, yeah. They're high up in the Aryan race, which
Yes,
would explain why he was
they
controlling
are
the aristocracy.
100%. That's exactly where it comes from, exactly
Yeah.
why he positions himself in a certain way when it comes to his relationships with the aristocracy, like you say.
And
And
his dad wasn't Frederick T. It's Frederick, right? It's like Frederick, how you say it in a German, and so on.
yeah,
And are they not descendants of Adolf himself? I'm not sure, but
conjecture, speculation. Do you know what I mean? I feel like a lot
yeah,
of these, um, you can be pretty certain in your mind, but formulating an actual solid bang. Yes, this is it. I've got the DNA evidence is a different thing. I mean, the
hmm
same goes for Charlie Ward. I'm
hmm
gonna drop a video soon, actually, and it is speculation, you know, but I'm pretty certain. I want to see what other people think, but if you go back, if you remember the 30 Reasons video,
yeah.
Cam talks about the parental discrepancy and him essentially lying about what his parents do. You know, he's in a cult, his mum's an alcoholic, his parents are doctors, she's a fucking vet, like whatever it is, man. He just rung off so many random little hints of like random things that he's said in the past and that. And I'm pretty sure I know who his parents are. So it's one of those, you know. I can't say for certain,
Mm.
but I'm pretty sure I know who his parents are.
I look forward to that video, man. I look
And,
forward to that. I mean, the 30 Reasons blew my mind. So anything surrounding that story now, I'm like, well, if you don't disassociate at this point, then there's got to be a reason why. You know, certain channels did disassociate. I think Santa Surfing, we were saying in that chat room the other night, there's a few others, Kirsten W and all them, but they stopped doing broadcasts with the guy. And he's got to be, and Freak himself, he's got to be a reason, those guys thought, nah, we can't work with him anymore. You know what I mean?
well, I
So,
think just integrity for a lot of people is the same as Charlie Ward doing it with Greg. You know,
yeah,
he realized if he was to carry that on, he's about to lose a few good thousand subscribers that are actually people that are going to go the extra mile and put a little bit of money into his pocket. You know what I mean? And they're the
yeah,
sorts of subscribers that those people don't want to lose. Same as Sam Surf and these other people. It's not like they've stopped broadcasting this 17 mob BS. They're still continuing doing that. You know what I mean? So
mm-hmm.
they just disassociated themselves with an individual, not the movement. An individual that spouts randomness like no person that says they're in the 17 mob can really associate with someone that says they've spoken to Mr. 17. And
Yeah,
Charlie
no.
said that he spoke to Mr. 17. So them lot are like,
He bought someone on, man. He bought someone on one of his shows, and he didn't show his camera. He just had the image of the letter Q, and it just seemed like one of the random guys, an average Robert David Steele. He didn't have any special knowledge, but he was claiming
I
he
mean,
was Q.
it's one of those for me. I feel like a lot of people are just misguided and helpless, but there are so many of those there in that circle now. Like I feel like really after this length of time, after doing so many videos and like, you know, it's not just me and M now, Johnny. We was some of the first people to jump on it, but it's not even like there's Americans, there's hundreds of people doing it now. If you're still in that mob and you're still giving money to that guy, there ain't really much saving you. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to save the unsavable.
I want people
I'm
to
here
make
to,
their own plans, you know, trust
yeah,
their own
100%. I'm here
plans.
to kind of just, because I feel like there's just a lot of confusion that's quite easy to resolve with simple explanations of certain things. Like, you know, if you want to get into the numerology talk or whatever in a bit,
Yeah.
there's certain things that people put out and they're like, you know, you have people that are lost. They're like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is amazing. And, you know, it might have elements of truth to it, but it
Mm.
just leads you into thinking a certain way. And I'm there to kind of, like, the aim of my channel now, I guess, is to kind of re-guide those people
Hmm.
onto what I consider to be the right path, you know. And I'll debate and talk with anyone that thinks that I've got things wrong or whatever, and I'm more than happy to admit when I have as well. Do you know what I mean? It's all a learning process for all of us. So in no way do I think, you know, I know everything about stuff, but at the same time as well, I would have never started a channel if I didn't have a specific angle to come from. You know, if I was
Hmm.
just floating about sort of in the ether thinking, oh yeah, this might happen, and oh I'm kind of listening to this, and I'm waiting for the next drop off this, and this intel's coming in, and no, this has changed now. Something's. If I was just following something blindly, randomly, and putting stuff out as it came in, I wouldn't be doing this. I don't think, because there's plenty of people out there to go and do that sort of stuff. All I'm doing is coming from a very, I wouldn't say strict, because I don't my life. I mean, I don't wake up and pray numerous times a day, every day. You know, even when it comes to dietary stuff, I've got one white sugar in my tea and stuff like that, which I know better for. Things like that, do you know what I mean, in my life that I don't necessarily go super hard on myself. So I'm not here to freaking preach to anyone or anything like that. But I certainly have a set angle and a set doctrine and a mind state and a way of thinking that I come from that I'll stick to. And like I say, if there's any sort of anything that people disagree with or whatever, I'm always more than happy to speak with people and debate and chat on anything. You know what I mean? Like the first videos I actually did probably before the audit even, maybe, which actually got, yeah, I got a few hundred subscribers actually before the audit, I think, and that was flat earth chats. So I was doing loads of debates with you know, globe earthers, people that
Hmm.
believe the spherical earth and that. So I was doing that for like a good few months and that, just in and out of chat rooms and doing various debates and loads of philosophical debates as well. I remember there's a load of people around Speaker's Corner and that, and I don't live anywhere in London and stuff, so I find myself in some of the live streams there on YouTube and that. And just have, like, you know, philosophical religious debates and things like that. So I was doing that a little bit before I got the channel up, to be fair.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really interesting. Like I said, what we should speak about the numerology side of things. I think there's a Trojan horse that rode Charlie's way to success as well, but seems to get passed around a lot in the community and talks to different people. So it's obviously working. But I need to point out a fact. It's the guy who goes by the alias of Tom Numbers. But I need to point out the fact that he's doing simple English ordinal gematria. Now, there are several different ciphers, at least four that I know of, and you got to do the reverse, not just A to Z. It goes Z to A backwards as well, you know. And then there's have people doing Latin gematria and Jewish gematria, all different types, man. And I've been following the correct channels that I perceive to be the correct channels anyway. I've been watching a few of them recently, and I found it really interesting. Like they're pointing out certain things and depths everywhere, and some of it's shocking information, but it seems to be pretty close, at least, to the truth. It's got some truth in it, definitely. I don't know why it only works with the English language, though. I need to do some more research into the history of it.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
All
So
right.
basically, the thing with numbers and even the manipulation of linguistics, it's not, it is about intent and it isn't about intent. The same way as the realm that they've got us trapped in is about consent and it isn't about consent. In practice, it's quite different in theory and in practice due to the duality and the complex fuckery that they've just got us stuck in. So, you know, it relates to like the common law side of things in terms of etymology and this stuff when I talk about um contractual obligations and the reality between things in practice, intent, and in theory. So with numerology is specifically basically the occult practice of messing around with numbers in relation to language. Gematria was strictly a Kabbalistic practice. It's an ancient Jewish practice, so it comes and is essentially only from Hebrew. Now, it has been developed and it does work in English, but really, like when you said straight ordinal cipher there, brilliant term, love it, but I didn't even recognize it as that because numerology
It's certainly not Trumpology.
No, most certainly.
I'm telling you that now.
They're so mentally just the most stupid stuff I've ever come across in my life in relation to, like, I feel like, yeah, it's so disrespectful. Like, it's not even necessarily a craft that I fully respect because it comes from the mystery schools. It's a mystery school teaching. So I do appreciate it and respect it in a certain way. It is an art, but I wouldn't praise it or necessarily promote the usage of it willy-nilly, which is essentially what these lot are doing, but they're not even promoting the usage of it because they're not using it properly. So numerology, like I say, is the occult teaching and the occult practice of deciphering and reconfiguring numbers in relation to various forms of linguistics. It does work with Latin, Greek. Greek is a major one in terms of biblical translation from the Old Testament when it comes to Kabbalistic gematria of the Torah, which is their Old Testament. They do loads of it. So that and gematria they are basically the same thing. Do you know what I mean? But they will just say that the ancient mystic Jews weren't really occultists, but they are. So you have like the Pythagorean cipher, which takes the numerics from A as 1 to the number 9 and then starts again. So it goes from 1 to I as 9 and then J starts as 1. You got Chaldean, which is 1 to 8. And they are just two of the more basic ones because they derive from, obviously, Pythagoras, the usage of proper geometrical numerical values within relation to the current linguistic system. But again, when people speak about, I mean, it's fine doing it with English because the powers that be obviously have made English the most prominent language, or at least proportionately the most, utilized language in the whole world. And that's for a reason. There's a reason that we don't have the same male and female dualistic principles that the rest of these European countries do, like France and Germany and Spain. They will have the masculine and feminine. There's a reason that our words are formulated in the ways that they are. In the start of creation of the Bible, there's 6 days. 6 days. 6 is inverse etymology is super important. So they use that loads within the creation of the language. Like people don't often even speak about how or why or when the language developed from ye olde English. I mean, it weren't that long ago and it changed super quick and people don't want to recognize that. I mean, these people that want to use, like you say, straight ordinal, or I just called it just a straight correlation cipher, because putting the letter 1, the number 1 as A and the letter Z as 26, that's not a cipher. That's just a correlation of letters in respect of to the numerics. That isn't a cipher. There's the ciphers that I spoke about a minute ago, for instance, Pythagorean and Chaldean, super basic common ones that are used, like I say. But then you've got like Enochian ciphers from John Dee. There's Voynich ciphers. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. You've even got I mean, that what you said there as well would probably be called like a pseudo cipher, where it doesn't really have any sort of geometrical foundation to it. There's just hundreds of ciphers. You know, I could talk about it all day, but it's not a practice that
mate, you're not going to get truth like that from many other channels. You know what I mean? And then this side kind of gets labeled as haters. I don't see that as the point. We're trying to bring the proper truth. You know, that's what got me interested in investigative journalism and wanting to ask you guys questions. You know, YouTubers that I watch and that have been watching right throughout the pandemic. You know, but I mean, the first thing that got me researching was probably either I was going to say the Iraq War because that really pissed me off. But I don't know. Maybe it was like my big one was watching the London Olympics and all the symbology in that 2012 shit and all the talk of the Mayan calendar and stuff. And that sent my head a little bit west. And then from there, it's like I've got to start researching and trying to be on the ball. So it's still a long time compared to a lot of these people who are out here going, wake up, you sheep. But they've only been here for the last year. You know what I mean? We've been here for time, mate. Here for a minute now.
Really, it's ego and overstanding with a lot of these people. You know, I speak to so many of these people that have come back to me and been like, well, you just don't get it, you don't know, you're obviously just a mask wearing MSM watcher. And it's like, mate, if only you knew.
You've even had a video where you went into a store and had a confrontation with the staff about putting on a mask. So he didn't know anything about you. Did watch that for a start and then gone, okay, well, we can't do
I mean, these people don't really have interest in, you know, finding out who you are. It's just meaningless slander. But to be fair, how I got into it, was, and I think I might have only told this story once before. So, yeah, basically, when I was in school, my ICT teacher, I won't say his name, but I didn't know about it at the time because I didn't really know nothing about it. But one of my friends who was older, he wasn't at school, he pulled up this picture on his website of my teacher, just like stood next to this book, this fuck off gold book on his altar with this like square and compass behind him and his fucking apron on and all this, like, it looked like one of them like mayoral type chains, bruv, and he's all stood there and that, and it said worshipful master blah blah blah, my teacher. I'm like, what the fuck is this? He's like, yeah, mate, like, your teacher's a Freemason. I'm like, whoa, that's super weird. But anyways, I'm scrolling through this page, and
how many degrees was he? I mean, you didn't say his name. Did you find out how high up the ladder he was?
third.
He's 47 in there. Is that, am I right in thinking he's 47 degrees?
There's 33 in the Scottish Rite, and then you know it's disputed amongst super high esoteric realms whether people that have come out and claimed that they've been higher than that are legitimate or not. I have really not got much interest in whether there is or not, because essentially once you understand the teachings and the fundamental principles surrounding the 33rd degree and what that all encompasses, you don't really need to know much more. You know what I mean? There isn't really, I mean, maybe they do more things if they get higher up than that, but in terms of actual understanding the general practices, and again, you know, like I said, I'm not saying that I know everything, but people also with this child stuff, for instance, gonna dig in on the deepest, most dirty, disgusting things ever and expose themselves most of the time relatively unwittingly to some serious trauma. People don't get that once you've exposed yourself to something, you can't take that back, whether it's real or not. Do you know what I mean? Like,
your energy
I saw once this freaking image of Clinton, the lady, taking, you know, I don't know if you heard about that.
I've not seen it.
I don't really necessarily, but like, there's no verification for us to say whether that's real or not. But if you watch it with your mind state saying that that's real, and it's probably not, because again, once you understand the fundamentals of the practice, it is just as beneficial for them to make you think that they've done something as it is for them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
because the effect on you is exactly the same, whether they've done it or not, which is where a lot of this stuff comes from. So on my channel, before I tell you the rest of that story, actually, remind me what story I was going on about because I'll probably forget. But on my channel, yeah, people will probably notice that it's one thing I do not speak about. I speak about, like I said, basically every other aspect other than the little people there that are meant to be under the ground. I dip that subject. I don't speak about it.
No, it meant so much to me as well. And the people who were talking about it, if the stuff F does all turn out to be proper bullshit, then you're gonna be all held accountable. You got a lot of explaining to do to all of us who've been watching. A lot of people have been watching you loyally every single day for the last 2 years, man. And you know what I mean? They're not awake to that though. They're awake to the information that you're putting out. And when that's peppered with disinformation and misinformation, that's going to distract them and cause more creation and more confusion, like Justice said earlier, man.
I mean, for me, the people that are predominantly pushing those things, I'm not saying the people that have got caught up in it and end up pushing that as like a byproduct of other people, but the most prominent forerunners that have pushed those sorts of narratives from sort of like, you know, the hashtag Me Too movement and all, because that's where all of this stuff comes from, is that mainstream narrative of Hollywood grossness or whatever. Do you know what I mean? That Hollywood-ish that has now apparently been exposed that we didn't know about since freaking its inception in 1950s or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like we didn't know about that. Like I'm 26 and I've known about that for I don't even. I'm not saying that people are dumb or anything because they didn't know about it, but to try and act like Me Too, Weinstein, all this stuff is new or something. That's the problem. Is that one, they're acting like it's new, and two, they're acting like it's just because people are dirty old men, or that, yeah, to get to the top, these are the sorts of things you have to do. They don't understand that these things are actual, real life magic practices that, I mean, even the act of pushing that in our face, which is what I want to talk about, like, the reason I don't speak about that sort of stuff is because the reason it's being pushed in our face with the Me Too movement, with all these other things, with the 17 movement and the little people under the ground and stuff, all of these different things are being pushed in your head. Like I see a couple Instagram influencers that are like truthers, and I'm not saying they're not. They're good people with good intentions. I have absolutely no doubt. You know, they've garnered a couple tens of thousands of followers and that, and I have no doubt in my heart at all that they come from a really, really good place. But they're out there in 2020 in the middle of lockdown, yeah, with like placards and that saying, Prince Andrew is our, you know what, and that. One, we know about that from long ago, for starters. Two,
you did a BBC interview about it. So.
Exactly, but perpetuating that stuff into the collective consciousness of society, the only people that would want to do that are the quote unquote deep state cabal. And the reason for that is because when they've put it to you in a way that you think that all of this stuff is going on at such a high level and it's all uncontrollable, whereas in reality it is, but it's also spread down the trail. I mean, you only have to look at
it's going on in all of our neighborhoods. You know what I mean? It's not just 1%.
There's that,
right?
There's that. So, for instance, yeah, like the 17 movement, you don't see a lot of them people supporting people who are good at the hunting stuff. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily condone that sort of stuff willy nilly. If you're going to do that, you have to be on your ish and real good at it, and then I might support it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of discrepancy in entrapment and them sorts of things. So I don't really mix with that stuff too hard. If you're good at what you do, cool, I respect it. But I wouldn't just promote people to go out and do that sort of stuff. But with it distorts their viewpoint, like you say. One, it's going on everywhere. Matey boy next door to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's because, again, all of the distortion that's in people's minds, the over sexualization of, I mean, this is the general principality of you know, the Crowleyism side of theosophy and the occult practices that they want all of us practicing, is that people want more, always more. And, you know, to fulfill your needs, you have to get more, do more, be more, have more, always. And the acceptability of certain things is more, you know. There hasn't ever been anyone to stop and say, oi, let's not have certain adverts. I mean, they're obviously the advertising authorities and that do take stuff down, but my point is with the development of sexualization and the imagery of it in popular culture, for instance, like music videos, all of this stuff, it has a purpose. You know, all these record companies that make these sorts of things, people, you know, say sex sells, but that's only because people are exposed to it and then get, I won't say addicted, but they have a,
No, no, I'd say addicted, man, because it's there
it's,
at your fingertips all the time.
it's yeah, it's that sort of,
You don't need to go out and go and interact at the bar, man. You can be happy with yourself if you get what I'm saying.
and that's
So
all it. That's again the practice of becoming one's own god is salvation through self. You know,
yeah,
you don't need another god. You don't need the Most High. You don't need Yahashua. You only need yourself to be saved. And that's like another phrase that I hate, bruv, is your truth.
hmm
I hear all of these people say that all the time. Just, you know, stand in your truth.
yeah,
And like
good.
as long as you're telling your truth, like, bruh, if your truth isn't true, then it doesn't matter if it's your fucking truth. Okay? There is one truth. There is
Yeah,
one creator
yeah,
and there is one truth. That is the only way it can be. There cannot be multiple truths, otherwise the logic, mate. Logic, do you know what I mean?
yeah. It doesn't make
People that
sense.
spout the notion that there can be a your truth, it's just an alleyway, a little slipway for them to get out of being wrong
Mm.
and being spouting misinformation and disinformation. I mean, like Charlie Ward is one of them people that would say your truth,
Yeah,
spout your truth. You know what I mean? It's nonsense. But I can't remember what I was going with that. Back to the
yeah,
story of how I got into it, right?
yeah.
Um, yeah, my teacher, he was a third degree Mason. So the highest that you can get, worshipful master in standard Blue Lodge Masonry. Then you go into the esoteric fractions above that. Um, so yeah, he was called a worshipful master. Now, this dude had taught me. I don't know if it was like for a year or 2 years or what. I can't remember. It was rubbish lessons. Didn't really pay much attention. But dude was a bit of a nugget, you
hmm
know. Like he was just a bit of a nugget. And I thought, like, what could this guy have done? And what could he have known? Because I was looking through the page as well, and all of these people were like counselors and like local business people. I'd Google a couple of them and see what they did and stuff like that, and they was like proper business owners, like posh people, like they was up there, running things within the local area in different facets. And I didn't realize at the time as well. My teacher was also like a motorbike driving instructor on the side and stuff like this. You know, I mean, he did like random things in the community, and I was like, right, I didn't know that. So anyway, he was called a worshipful master on the website, and the website looked exactly the same as the school website. It was like an old school, just plain white background, like Windows 98 style. And this is like, going back like 2010 times. So it was even like, it looked old back then. So I was like, this is so shit. Like, it's obviously him that's made the website. So we're looking through it and I was thinking, like, what could he know to have all of these other intellectual, well established, respectable people call him a worshipful master? You know what I mean? That's like, that's a big accolade. You got like, I'm looking for all these people thinking like, I know this guy. I wouldn't like. There's no way I'd call him anything of a master, even at computers, and he's an ICT teacher for fuck's sake. So how you lot call him a worshipful master? I'm confused.
He's a
And from
nugget.
there, we can't. I kind of got a bit of a bug and just wanted to know what it is that he knew, what Freemasonry was about. That led me onto like the occult and just looking at all them sorts of things. Like around me, at the start of the park, there's a massive obelisk. So I learned
hmm
about the obelisk and all of these various different
Osiris.
Babylonian bits of iconography, the Tower of Babel. I mean, it took me years and years to turn to the Bible. And even when I did, at first I did it from a point of view of trying to, I mean, I always do that anyway, trying to kind of like semi-debunk something if I think it myself, if I think it's a possibility, you know what I mean? I'll debunk it, and then if I can't debunk it, I'm like, right, well, seems like it might have something to it. But it took me years and years and years to to turn to the Bible. I went down that road of looking into Freemasonry and understanding to a point what they understood. And I was for a long time within that first 2 or 3 years. Because the first year, I was probably just dibble dabbling, and I went down and tried to spy on a few meetings as well and watch loads of these old people come into the temple, the Freemasonic temple down there. Watch them come, and as well, actually, that was one of the first. Right, so that was only probably a month after that I'd been on the website. Me and a few friends went down there, and watched these people come in. We was all sneaking in the bushes and that. Come out of the main driveway because we snuck in the back. So we've come through these trees and that, come out of the main driveway. As we come out of the main driveway, there's just a police car sat there waiting. And me and my friends like, shit, you know, a few of us had a bit of smoke on us or something. We like just like walked past and that. But it was just waiting outside the meeting. And we was like, right, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this is proper. This is proper. This isn't like some little old boys joke club, like it's a proper joke. This is proper. These lot are on stuff. So
Yeah.
it gave me, you know, that little bit of spur that I wanted to go and find out stuff. But for the first like 2 or 3 years, like I say, I was in the same pattern of thinking as a lot of these people, probably for longer than they have been, about the same stuff. I was indoctrinated semi into the mystery teachings, you know. I was on the thing where like, yeah, Mythos was born to a virgin birth, and Isis and all these things, you know, the son is the son of God, not no Jesus thing and all of that. I was on that stuff. I was on the Bible. The Bible was totally infiltrated and manipulated by Freemasons. I ain't reading that. It was written by man. Ain't God passed down his word through man in English language and stuff? Like, I was totally not on any of that stuff for a little while until I realized that was foolishness.
Yeah, explains your IQ. You know, that story,
Yeah,
I mean, you've been through a lot, and like, you got a high IQ for your age, man. Totally.
I mean, I was young when that happened, you know what I mean? I was 14, 15 when we went to the website and I got into that. So from that point onwards, it was really nothing but music and research, really. That's all there.
Am I right in thinking you were chosen to be in masonry, depending on your bloodline? You will be approached at a certain time and told if you're down with it, fine. If you're not, keep your mouth shut, kind of thing. You know, you can't just like knock on the door 3 times and expect to go in and have a brew and start learning
No,
about.
their thing is, their thing is, ask one to know one. So you have to ask a mason to be a mason.
I see. Right. I thought everything was bloodline connected, and it all.
That's what it's meant to be.
Right.
Look, I'm obviously, yeah. If your dad is a prominent mason and he wants you to be in it, and you know you probably join as soon as you're 18 or even younger. But what happened was actually is, like I say, like people, and when it comes to know where we're at, yeah, people really need to know the past. That's all there is to it. You know, a lot of these new age spiritual nutty 17 followers talk about different timelines and don't get me wrong, history has been manipulated. It is his story for real. That is true, you know. So I don't know, do some revision of what was meant to have happened in the Holo thing in Germany and that. There is alternative history, and history has been manipulated to the most severe degree, but to know where we've come, to know where we're going or where we are at, we need to know the past. And like in terms of masonry, masonry within itself is a craft that dates back obviously to biblical times. And it isn't in and of itself a bad practice. Masonry does generally come from masonry. Like things like
stonemasons and stuff.
What do they call like the graduation hats?
I can't remember, but I know the shape of them.
Mortar boards, yeah.
Right, okay.
Mortar boards, because that's what you take your cement off of.
Yeah, okay.
And that is on top of them. They are always underneath the mortar board of masonry. So this is why the educational system is how it is, and why these people in positions like, you know, like when it comes to intellectual authority as it is, you know, like when you, I don't know if you've seen that new Panorama documentary on BBC talking about the VACCINE and all the other things. It's talking about misinformation on the internet and, you know, all us conspiracy theorists, and how we go about it, and they have some doctors on there and blah blah blah. But the idea that, you know, we can't be scientists, like when, for instance, when I started this channel and I was speaking about the flat Earth model versus the spherical model, having these debates and stuff. Like,
I'd love to do a separate show on that with you,
going
man.
in, yeah, man, happily. But
Yeah,
you know, like, we was going in on some, and a lot of it, you know, I need to, you know, have a little refresh in that. But like, we was going in on some real deep scientific principles, and the idea that you need to go to university or a specific university, and I'm not putting down people that do or have, because that needs to be respected in its own right. But the idea that you must obtain certain qualifications or you know, medals or trophies or whatever it is, in order to reach a certain level of intellect or to be able to talk about something or to be able to understand something, is nonsense, total BS. And that is something that's created again by Masonry, or Freemasonry, should I say? Because what happened really was they had these. I mean, Masonry essentially comes from the Solomonic dynasty. Obviously, before that, with you know, all of these megalithic structures that we see all over the world and stuff that I believe were put there by the Nephilim, along you know, human.
I'm with that. That's interesting, man. I'm not going to keep you much longer, bro, because I've had you on for an hour.
It's been a minute, no worries.
But I do want to do more shows with you in the future. And one thing I wanted to touch on, definitely, and let my audience know, because it's important, get onto SoundCloud, search for Farms. Some of that hip hop, man, was some of the best I've heard in a while. That's the hip hop I like, man. I like real lyrical smashes. I'm not into spitting a million words a minute. I like big lyrical powerhouses, you know. And the beats were fat as well. Did you produce it as well?
I have produced a few tunes on there still. It's like predominantly my friend Finest, who you can find on SoundCloud, PHINEST, and on like Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff as well. But yeah, there's me, Finest, Asher, my friend Joe Byrne as well. Check him out. Joe Byrne, he's real cool.
Link me up. Send it to my inbox as well. Bro.
Yeah, man.
I did really enjoy that, man. Can I ask why farms? Because I think of Big Pharma and I think of Pharmakia and then I think of witchcraft, and that's just the way my mind works. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shit, man, I'm connecting dots that don't need to be connected.
Pharmakia is where the pharmacy or the pharmaceutical word operates from, and that is the ability to concoct various natural herbs and spices for various ailments. But my name is Tis. Most people call me Tis, Tis, hence just Tis. I come from the countryside, deep in the hills here, so I'm a bit of a farmer of different sorts. So pharmatist, pharmacist, all I want. Duality synthesized, which is their practice, and that's a lot of what my music is as well. It's highlighting their practices in the opposite light. So for instance, where I say I'm more wicked than Aleister Crowley, that's the best way I could highlight it. You know what I mean? Aleister Crowley says he's the wickedest man in the world. So if I say I'm more wicked, would that make me more evil, or what? In whose eyes? You see what I'm saying? It's about explaining their practice in the opposite light. So, because that's what theirs is all about. It's all about inverse law. You know,
it's like you're using it back at him. He's like kind of almost trolling him. You know, like there's a color coding, isn't he? And
that's what it's about, because that's all they do to us. It's mockery, brother. It's mockery. So before we go, mate, let me hit you with some inverse etymology. So like when we're talking with Greg Hallett and all these other things, royals in English backwards, ROYALS, is slayer, which is SLAYOR, slayer. Cone, when we was talking about perception and the ability to perceive this physical realm, the cone of our eye inverses what it is that we're supposed to actually see. Light spectrum, it hits our eye and inverts in order to give us the ability to see, which is the cone of our eye. Cone backwards is Enoch.
I never heard a
Um,
thought of that.
veteran
Yeah.
inverse is narrative.
Ah.
Um,
Mate, you understand spelling well.
cover,
Yeah.
revoke, revoc, cover. Um, from, from, inverse straight is morph.
Ah.
You've got more ones that are based on like just the phonetic of it. So like parents, if you split it in half, like pair, that rents. You're
Yeah.
the pair that rents. When you're
Yeah.
birthed, you come through the birthing canal, you get delivered back to where you just come from, and boom, you're with the
Mhm.
pair that rents.
I was thinking mortgage, death pledge as well.
Yeah,
Giving that shit for life.
yeah. There's funny ones, man, like effort, trophy,
Hmm.
TROFFE. Same as strife, efforts, EFIRTS.
Nice.
Dragon
Yes.
is no guard.
Ah, right. Okay.
They have no guard.
Interesting, man.
There's hundreds of them, man, but like these various contradistinctions that appear in the language, um, I'm not here to say whether they're there by design or coincidence. That's for people determine of their own. But like you say, it's all spelling and
Yeah.
magic with a CK. So
I think discernment was a natural spiritual gift given to me by the Most High. Definitely, it feels that way anyway. Sorted my life out a few times whenever I've asked for it, needed it, pleaded for it, begged for it because I've had to. But in favour, I've hoped that I've done enough good stuff so the scales are balanced or out
yeah, there's
good outweighs
intuitive
the bad.
discernment. There's intuitive discernment. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have necessarily had to hear Charlie Ward spout what he needed to in order to discern that he was a dodgy geezer. You know, it's a lot of
I could tell.
body like saying, do you know Sean Atwood?
Yeah.
Loads of stuff was kicking off with him on YouTube recently. I know from
Right.
day one that dude is a fraud. Man ain't never been in no jail for a long time about he's a big kingpin drug smuggler dealing with freaking Mexican warlords and that. He's nonsense. I knew that from day one. You can just tell. Do you know what I mean? It's one of
My
those
old
real.
man told me to keep my eye on him as well, bro.
Yeah, that's just natural intuition. But then, within the depths of like the 17 movement and these other various forms of disinformation and the understanding of the practice, a lot of the time there needs to be just straight intellectual. I forgot the fucking word. What was you saying?
Oh, mate, yeah, I got lost. I got lost. No
Oh,
problem.
it's getting late. But yeah, man, it's been a good chat still.
Yeah, defo. I won't keep you any longer, bro. Thanks for coming on, man. Go over to Justice's channel, subscribe to Justice 2 Militant as well, just in case he ends up back in jail. So then
Yeah,
you got both channels, man. You've got lots of content to catch up on.
yeah.
It's all worth it, man. You're gonna learn a lot. I learned a lot tonight, and I'm hoping most of you did as well. I learned loads, man. So I'm really appreciative that Justice came on. And it's
No,
happy.
enough
So
respect, man. Thank you for having me.
Tis, you can come on anytime you want, brother.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, once a month or every few weeks or
Yeah,
whatever, just hit me up and we'll bust a thing in it and talk
yeah.
about specific things in specifics or whatever.
The
Really dive.
shape, the shape of the earth, man. We'll go in depth on that one because I'm confused.
Yeah, I haven't spoke about that in a very long time, mate. So I'd look forward to doing that. Still, it'd be interesting. Are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
actually? Is that something that you prescribe to already? Or have you not really gone into that at all?
Yeah, for a while I was like, oh, it's okay. I've made my mind up already. Flat, stationary plane has to be. Yeah, I'm just trusting my senses. I'm seeing the same stars in the sky every night. So surely, if I'm on a spinning ball going round shit all over, I'll see different stars all over. But I'm not seeing different stars all over. So at first, I was fully flat, and then I started prescribing more to a simulation. And then I'm thinking it's an organic simulation that might have even simulated itself into existence. And then my brain's going too deep because I'm far too stoned or probably need to sleep or some shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I say about the perception of the physicality. You know what I mean? Like I don't not prescribe to the idea of a simulation. It just depends what people would define a simulation as. Do you know what I mean? That our perception of this physicality is only as real as we experience it, and that's it. There is no more or less to it. It's not important as to how real you then perceive it on the outside or not, because you won't be here. Do you know
One
what I mean?
thing I have noticed is loads of paintings through loads of different cultures, Mayans, all sorts, Aztecs, and they all depict this same kind of snow globe looking shape. So that's always made me interested. Maybe we are flat, but kind of there's a
Yeah,
big dome over us, kind of thing.
the firmament again.
Yeah,
The book tells us exactly what separates the heavens and the earth, the waters above and the waters below, and it's the firmament. A
that's in
big,
Genesis, right?
yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
And
yeah,
for me, yeah, again, that is a notion that scientifically I have no reason not to prescribe to. It makes
yeah,
perfect sense.
yeah.
It stands there. It's held the test of time, and it's probably the only thing it does make any
Something
sense.
I've noticed is always been a massive focus on DNA. There is right now as well. Do you know what I mean? It's all DNA, this DNA, that. But it was if you look back in the Anunnaki story, and Anu gave birth to Enlil and Enki, and that was all about DNA and manipulation of DNA. And like, this is why I need to go back and read some of them older books, man. I need to like sit down with maybe the Book of Enoch and read it for myself, so I've got a proper understanding. I want to read all the books that I should be reading. Just link me up, man, and I'll get on it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I say, with like, understanding where we're going or where we are at, we really have to understand the 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 before. So, like the teachings of Aristotle and Plato and um Diodorus, Sammaticus, and all of these different philosophers from ancient times. The Bibliotheca Historica by Diodorus, like I think is written in like between like 60 and 30 BC. So these are all real depictions of the landscape at different times and prior to that time as well, from first-hand intellectuals of the time. Like we know for a fact there's not really any dispute that these ancient civilizations, such as the ancient Greeks and stuff, had intellectuals. They weren't cavemen, they were intellectuals. They wrote stuff. We should go and read it because it
Yeah,
tells you. I mean, these people, ask Aristotle, ask Plato who built Jerusalem. They tell you. They tell you who built Jerusalem. So there's no questioning over what the Bible says. There's no questioning over the relationship between America and Israel and where these different things are historically and geographically on a map and who initiated these certain things. There's no disputing it because it tells you, and the history after that plays out and correlates to what they tell you. So
absolutely. But when we
you
were
know,
hearing ISIS this and ISIS that, ISIS the other around that time, I was thinking this has to be an American creation because an Islamic group wouldn't name themselves after an Egyptian deity. You know,
yeah.
they make sense to me straight away. I was like, but I hear a lot about that and fairy aristocracy across between
I mean, obviously, I
between
guess that,
pharaohs.
that could be kind of like a translatable anomaly because
Mm.
obviously that's kind of like a breakdown. Can't remember what a pinpoint ISIS Islamic State of whatever it would be called, and that would be called something in Arabic or whatever. But I get what you're saying. It's all orchestrated and fabricated again to just fit in with this narrative of worshipping pagan deities and
Mm.
having them do crazy bidding because we're still reading the effects of all that stuff. All of these things that are put in place aren't put in place and then just forgotten about. The domino effect, the ripple effect of how these things play out afterwards goes on for decades and decades. Everyone's still feeling the effects. People are fleeing them areas. There's still bags of shit going on over there. Nothing's calmed down just because we're going through COVID.
I've got one question left, but I think it's a big question and it's going to be required. Actually, it's gone out of my head, man. So, do you know what? I'm going to save it for the next show anyway. I'm going to
No,
think about this little fact in some more detail. I'm going
now
to
go on.
go away and research. No, no, no. I'm going away. I'm doing some research. Doing some research. I'm going to save that for part two. And then, because I'm reckoning people are excited now. They're like, buzzing. I've learned a lot tonight. I'm definitely going to watch part two. So,
Wicked, wicked.
yeah, man, we'll get
Yeah,
it
like
again.
I say, in the meantime, man, I would just encourage people to re-pick up their Bible if they haven't done in a long time, because You know, if you're someone that's followed the "it will be biblical" thing and haven't done during that whole time, then it's going to be beneficial to you. And also, just reading the history.
It's
You know,
better to accept if you have been misled as well. Hold your hands up and then go to the places and the sources that you can trust. You
there's no
know.
shame in it. Like I say, I was on it for like 2 or 3 years, like 10 years ago, thinking that freaking the Son of God was actually the Son and
There's the
shit
sun.
like that. You know, that all of these different pagan deities had the same crazy anomalies as Christ. That they was all from a virgin birth, and they all performed miracles, and they all walked on water, and they all did this. And I fully believed that for a good couple of years, but
Yeah.
I
Was that
realized,
zeitgeist that put you onto that?
um, yeah, it was partially, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, same here, man. That was
And there
probably
was
one
a
of the
lot.
first
There
things
was
I
a
watched.
lot of David Icke's teachings around then. A lot of different things that I was looking into and stuff. But yeah, Zeitgeist definitely had a bit of an impact on that for sure, man. You know,
There was some good
I thought that
documentaries up there.
I thought that for a good few years, but I realised I was wrong, and
Mm.
I don't care.
Mate, that's perfect. That's what I just said about holding your hands up, and you can admit when you've got something wrong, man. I've got plenty of stuff wrong, and I always come out here and tell you when I've got it wrong.
Yeah,
Rather than you battering me in the comment section, I'll try and clean up my mess out in another video or whatever. But
it's a beautiful thing being wrong, really, mate. Like to find out that actually there isn't all of these synchronicities between these different deities in relation to Christ, Yahshua, and
mm-hmm.
and his life is brilliant. So you know, I mean, it's not bad being wrong. People always think being wrong might be a bad thing or something. Like it's one of the best things that could have possibly happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if you haven't already, now's the time to repent. You never wanted Jesus saving you. You wanted Yahshua saving you. You know, that's what it was all about, man. Not drawing the X on your head when you're a baby and that, like, man. The beast, I don't want. That's not right, man. You know, I could go into loads of stuff to do with organized religion as well, but we'll leave
Yeah,
it here for this interview, man.
Richard. Yeah, no, it's been
Yeah,
good talking, mate. Thank you for having me. It's been good.
you too, bro. I'll speak to you soon.
Peace.
Please like and subscribe.